So, hi everyone. I'm here today with Sean Royce, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Quickline. Hi, Sean. Nice to meet you again.
Yeah, nice to see you, Chris.
And also with Adam Bradley, who is one of our partners and the head of our telecoms practice here at 8 Advisory.
Hi, Chris.
So we're going to talk to Sean about the recent report that we ran and released on penetration and take-up. So I'll hand over to Adam to ask the first few questions.
Great, thanks very much, Chris. So, Sean, I think you've seen a copy
Yes.
of the take-up paper that Chris just alluded to. Tell us what struck you most about the piece and what your main takeaways from it were.
Yeah, it's a very interesting report, and if you've not read it, have a read of it. Everybody that's watching, a lot of it is common sense, dare I say. We'll come back to that. But a lot of the insight around the Sky partnership with City Fibre, around the wholesale opportunity that ISPs face. With that recent announcement, that sort of spurred that whole piece on, I think. So it'd be good to talk about that, and there's some good insight in there. I think to have wholesale aspirations, you've got to have scale. I think that's the first thing to say. However, I am increasingly of the view that you've got Openreach out there where they get to most of the premises in the UK, or will do. The big retail ISPs will look to infill where they can't reach their customer base through Openreach's network with the likes of City Fibre. I don't see it necessarily as a bad thing for Openreach. Not a good thing. I don't think it's devastating news, but it is a good news for those Altnets who have got premises in places where Openreach haven't, and the likes of Sky or whoever, Talk, BT, BT themselves even potentially, maybe never could take advantage of. So I think that's moved on, and I think there'll be a lot of industry talk about that in the coming months and weeks. And I think just generally the retail side, for me as a rurally focused provider, it's all about the retail proposition. And it's easy to say, make sure your product is strong and your service is strong and your price is right and you'll do well, because you won't. You need more than that. For my business, it's about hyperlocal marketing. It's about embedding yourself in the community. It's not just about giving a few apprenticeships and a few laptops away and connecting a parish council. It's much more than that. For me, that's, I think, where the strong retail brands the regionally focused businesses will make a difference. Because as this report says, 91% of connections are through the big five. So if you haven't got a partnership with the wholesale, you've got to think about doing something different. And I think that kind of comes out in the report for me.
Okay, great. I think you're touching on some of the points in your answer already, Sean, but one of the things we put in the report is that the penetration of Openreach is significantly higher than the Altnets at different levels. What's your view on why Altnet penetration is relatively low compared to that achieved by Openreach?
Well, I think it's difficult comparison, isn't it? You're looking at alternative network operators with their own retail ISPs who are not known. I'm not sure how many people will know of Quickline that are listening to this, or Zoom, or Swish, or Truly, or Tube, or all the multiple brands out there that are trying to compete and get customers, whereas everybody's heard of the big five. And the brand investment behind a BT, a Virgin, a TalkTalk, a Sky, or a Vodafone, hence 91% of the market behind those big brands. There is a lot of trust issues and confusion in the market, and an alternative networks will say that. We provide a service right across the UK that is the best broadband service you can get on a full fibre connection. And yet for years, our customers think they have got fibre. They've got a copper access circuit from the cabinet to their house. So that hasn't helped the situation. If you haven't heard of these brands and you're putting something that is such an important part of your life in somebody else's hands that you're not sure about, then, or you could put it with one of the big brands a bit on the BT network, then you probably will do that. When you're moving your money around, if you've got any money, you look at where you're going to invest it. There's some financial services companies you've never heard of, and then there's a few brands that you have, but you're going to get a little bit less. Sometimes that security is something that you want, and I think we see that in fibre until we can educate our customers that we are here to stay. We are giving a proposition that is second to none. So I think that's the difference right now. It's better the devil you know with BT.
Okay. So what do you think needs to change? Or is it just a passage of time, or is there something proactively that we can all do to?
Well, in the report, Chris, it says have a strong retail proposition, and I think that's what it is. But it is more than just price and proposition. I think it's about regional operators now. I think the market will end up with 2 or 3 or 4 big players and 2 or 3 in the cities and the market towns. And then the last 20%, 10% will be rural provided, rurally focused operators. And they will have to be hyperlocal. They will have to embed themselves in the community. They will have to wrap themselves around social value and prove the benefit of these businesses being in their areas. That's what we try to do at Quickline. We have a very strong focus around what we call our Q Futures program. It's built on the 3 E's. It's educate, enrich, and the environment. We have people who live in these areas, who work in these areas. We're only Yorkshire and Lincolnshire focused. So we're trying to be a hyperlocal partner to these communities to help them flourish and grow. And when we talk about educate, we go into the schools, we give digital literacy courses, we do online safety training. Of course, we do apprenticeships and learning and work experience as well. When we talk about enriching, we work with all sorts of organisations, including the Prince's Trust, to put people back into employment, to try and get an education and employment people in training or whatever it might be. And then you have these people in these areas that hear the brand, trust the brand, and become customers as well. So I think it's a partnership. It's got to be much more than that when you're fighting with 5 well-funded, well-known brands. And for me, that's the edge. It's that hyper-local and embedding yourself in the community.
It's very interesting because we did a similar interview with Ben Oggy. And again, his whole sort of position is very similar, that actually he's got to fight on his own territory and the thing that makes them different in their own market. And guessing it's a similar parallel for you.
I think, Chris, you look at Oggy in Wales, you look at Fibrous, Northern Ireland and Cumbria, you look at Quickline right across Yorkshire and Lincolnshire, Wildernet in Cornwall. You know, there are GigaClear, of course. There are those operators that do their regional. It's easier said than done. You know, as I say, it's easy to say, right, let's just part of the community and we'll, as I say, give a few laptops away and run a fair in the parish kilns. It's got to be much more than that. You know, there's a handful of ISPs I just mentioned there who are trying to create a brand and a proposition that is much deeper than the big boys, because that's the only way we can compete. We don't have that brand capital to invest.
So you just tell us a bit more, because there's a common thread here with regional players, what they've done to be successful. So what is it that's made Quickline so successful? Is what are the things that you've done?
Your proposition and your price points got to be on the money. It doesn't need to be the cheapest. We're not a cheap broadband provider by any stretch, but we do offer value for money. You've got to give the product and the price point that customers can see value in. Because we're all up against the national papers or Facebook or whatever, when you've all these Sky and TalkTalk offers come flying in. So it is about, I understand that they care about my community, they care about my connection. So for me, it's community, it's hyperlocal, but the service in itself. You look at all the big boys' Trustpilot scores, and then you look at the alternative networks. Yes, they're smaller, but you're looking at 2s and 3s in the big boys' Trustpilots, and you're looking at 4.5. Pretty much average across most of the Altnet community who have got a strong focus around service. And I think customers accept that every now and then a broadband connection, for whatever reason, in the home more often than not, it isn't always as quick. We all know how complex networks are. It can be all sorts of parts of the chain. But if you can get through to somebody, they can talk to you, they care, they look after you in the manner that you want to talk to them. Some of the younger generation don't want to talk to somebody, do they? They want to talk through a live chat or whatever it might be. If you can provide that service, I think customers accept that and welcome that. So as long as you put their problem right relatively quickly. So for me, it's to compete with the big boys, and it's to ensure the trust is there, the service is first rate. When it goes wrong, you're respectful and you put it right quickly, and you can talk to somebody in whatever format that might be, as well as you're embedded in the local community. For me, the rest of it, product pricing is a given.
So what's next for Quickline? Because you've made some announcements, you've won some more sort of Project Gigabit. What's next for you guys?
We're a provider in the UK who are regionally focused only exclusively in those 2 areas, Yorkshire and Lincolnshire. I say those 2 areas. They are the 2 largest counties in England. There's a big patch. Because we do rural, we do look for subsidy, because it is to make the economic model work. And we've been very lucky that we've won the 4 contracts that we've bid for with Project Gigabit. So we're the 2nd largest Project Gigabit delivery partner with City Fibre in the UK. Having said that, BT have got the Type C contracts now, but certainly that's true currently. We've got all the contracts in Yorkshire. We've got the majority of Lincolnshire. So that means we're building out to pretty much 360,000 full fibre premises in that patch, where the broadband is either non-existent or woeful at best. And I say in these communities, because I'm a big fan of BDUK, you might say, oh, of course you are, you've won the contracts. But I think you see research from the Centre for Economic and Business Research the other day that said that there's £65 billion of economic benefit if you can improve rural connectivity. You forget it's another 7% of jobs if you can improve rural connectivity. For a £5 billion project gigabit tax take, I think that's good value for money. In fact, we need to think about maybe getting the very hard to reach areas upgraded. These are the communities that need it. Yeah, they've got no post office, they've got no bank, they've got no library, they've got no access to GP services or any other public services. They've got to go to the market towns or the cities. So they actually need that. If you want to talk to a GP on the phone and you haven't got a connection, we're morally doing the right thing. But also, we are upgrading UK PLC. And I think the manufacturing or logistics, tourism and agriculture, those 4 large sectors in rural areas will only benefit from that. So our people are doing a good thing, and we're not totally benevolent, Chris, right? If you believe that everyone wants broadband, very few people would disagree with that. If you are the only game in town, i.e. avoiding overbuild, which your report talks about, then you should get a very, very high market share. That's how our model is built. We're working with government to build in areas where the need is greatest. We would expect a strong take-up in that, and that's what we've been seeing over the last sort of 12, 24 months as we've been starting this journey.
Great. So what comes next is largely the sort of execution of those projects.
Yeah, and Chris, I said at the beginning of the report, there's a lot of interesting insight in there. And I said some of it's common sense, but the common sense bit is the hardest bit. Yeah,
it certainly is. That's why it's theoretically common sense, but probably not common sense.
Yeah, exactly. Have a strong retail proposition. Yeah, but how do you do that? And there are some clues in this. Those of you listening, have a read of it. But it is about embedding yourself. For us, we think, my view is, it's hyperlocal, easy to say, not so easy to do. Recruit people in those areas. Make sure you're focusing on it. Invest with partners that can grow jobs and grow the economies, and they'll take your services. But doing that is difficult.
Yeah. Thank you ever so much for that. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your time. And on behalf of Adam and I, we wish you all the very best of success with your big project. Yeah. Thank you.
Delighted to talk to you both. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.